had to take a break and just rest and do some other stuff, but figured it was better just continue. And what was it that I had on my mind? It was something. Never mind. Yeah. The weather. Sunny and hot. I think that's sort of an odd thing. We Swedes often joke about that. We're talking about the weather so much, and I've heard that my impression is that that's sort of confirmed by other countries or cultures that we do. And for me, I usually just thought that, well, all cultures do that. We just happen to think that we're so special to talk about that so much. And then just have this discussion of, yes, that's because we so seldom have really good weather, because it's usually cold. So when it's sunny and hot, we're like, yeah, finally. So the irony, what midsummer is the big holiday thing, or the big sort of early summer thing, like midsummer is, and classic comment is that when it rains on midsummer, it's like, yes, we always say, like, the comment is, yes, this is typical midsummer, because it not always, but it's sometimes rains on midsummer. It's not always that hot and so forth. But what I found or I heard is that it's actually not true, that it is just something that we've made up and think that it actually seems to be quite often. Other cultures don't talk about it that much, and it's also sort of connected to another discussion about Swedes being sort of a culture where you don't. Sometimes people even put it that they're irritated if you sit beside someone else on the bus, if it's not like you have to, and if you all the other 2 seats are occupied, or 1 seat. So if you want to sit, you have to, and especially if you talk to someone, then it's really weird. I don't know if that's unique for Sweden. If it's unique, but it seems to be like, for me, it seems like, well, are there really culture where you would sit with someone else when you don't have to? In my mind, it's actually quite not bad, but it is quite odd for me to imagine. And I guess it's probably different 50 years ago, or at least 60, 70 years. I don't know how long there have been buses, but, and I usually try to understand how much exaggerated that culture differences are, because sometimes as with the weather thing, I think, like, yeah, for sure, we're not at all. It is kind of a Swedish thing to not be super social on the bus, for example, and I can imagine that there is more conversations on buses at other places, but not like, I don't know. We don't have school buses in Sweden. Maybe it's somewhere, but usually don't. And then of course it's different because you're friends and stuff. And yeah, usually a lot of the time when I went on the bus and train for different schools, I usually bumped into friends or people in the same class and so forth, and then of course you talk, but and though not at all times, it depends on what age and what type of people there were, but but if you're in the same class, and bit older, and but anyway, so it's hard to I don't know how exaggerated it is, those differences, but for sure, I mean, in general, other countries are much more like social, outgoing, and stuff like than Swedes, I guess. But I mean, I don't see that really happen in Japan or China, even if it's like full of people. If it wouldn't be like in just people just sitting, I have still kind of hard to imagine that they would sit on another person's seat beside that one if they don't have to, sort of, or at least walk in a long wagon or something, or but so I don't I mean not been traveling so much like in I've usually always been flying to play, but I actually did when I were in LA and thought that the traffic, taking the bus traffic, was the same as being Sweden, taking the bus class traffic. I thought that it would be sort of I would not be. I figured quite fast that it was not, everyone was not taking the bus. Like taking the bus, at least in LA, seemed to me like a place where it could be due to the hour. I think it was quite late. Yeah, very late. That could cause that they were sort of different type of people on the bus, but it felt as if I was perhaps wearing a little clothes that were a bit not that. It was sort of the average clothes and just the style, I guess. And I just what's it called, Pikea in Sweden? What do you call it? I don't know the name for it, but not like odd at all. But felt a different there. But at that time, it actually was a woman who started to speak. Maybe, but she was sort of, it was kind of different. There was actually one woman. She sitting sort of opposite of me, and she asked where I were going for a hotel, and then there's someone else yelling from the back in the bus saying, "Don't talk to her." I don't remember if that person said something about don't tell her. He said, "Don't tell her." And when she asked where I would live, as if I think I heard something about that she would sneak up and steal or something. I don't know, or that was what I thought. After why would someone yell that in the bus, back from that with the bus? And I don't know if that's a common thing to happen in the bus. For me, it was like, okay, and I felt like, why would that even be? Why would that? No, I never understood that, and I haven't thought about it for years. Actually, this was probably 5 years ago or something. But anyway, that was an experience. In some way, I have a hard time thinking that's the normal, average thing that happens. Or did I just stood out that much that it sort of provoked or just caused some people to act just because it was sort of, I don't know, they wanted to interact just because I stood out in some way. I don't. Because I got the feeling that I did stand out a bit, but not sure. And but going back to the weather thing, because why we sometimes speak about the weather is, I think, well, it's a sort of classical thing that, or at least in my mind, and when I sort of I've learned somehow and heard, and we talked about it basically when I was younger, that you you started to talk about the weather when you have nothing else to talk about. I don't know if that's everyone. So it's sort of shameful to bring it up, but um, I don't know if that's a general feeling about it in Sweden or place I haven't talked about it with people for a long time, but still, anyways, people do it anyway in Sweden, so it's quite a normal topic. I bring it up, all the people bring it up, and it is like sort of interesting. I mean, it's like we like when it's sunny and hot, but that's very seldom. And when it is, we usually also whine about it being too hot. At least some people do. So it's kind of weird. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still not entirely convinced that it is some more spoken about more, but maybe it's more variation in the Swedish climate. I don't know if it is. If it's more variation, that would make sense. But it would also make sense if it's like not very often good weather. Then I mean that's something that you really would like, and of course it's not. It makes sense, sort of, to speak about it. And it's yeah, because I mean if it's always like sort of a climate that you like, it's like why would you talk about it? But you always have it. If it's like, I don't know, 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, I mean if it's over 20 in Sweden, you're really happy. Like that's like, yeah, Celsius, that's like, well, that's fine. Then it's summer weather. You might want, most people will say, yeah, 22 would be great. But already at 23, 24, my mom is like, I don't want, yeah, 17 is like fine. And if you're going for a run, yeah, it better be 10 degrees. Some people, yeah, most people are like, yeah, 10 to 15 degrees Celsius is like, otherwise you're just hot, and it is. And I agree with that. I mean, I can find some pleasure running when it's hot, but I don't have the same endurance. I mean, and I guess that's backed by science also, like, or science. I don't know if you're running better when it's cool. I don't know the optimal temperature, but most people I will talk about in Sweden prefer like, I guess 13 to 14 degrees or something like that. So when it's obvious that you don't want like 35, 40 degrees when you're running, it's like exhausting. But so I wonder what that. I mean, it's not often that cold, well, during the winter perhaps in some places for sure it can be 13 degrees. But yeah, so. But I mean, Swedes go to other countries as well, so we it's not as if we don't know what it's like 30 degrees, and it does happen seldom 30 degrees, but when we're in other countries, of course we know what it's like, but not all Swedes like those kind of extremes in Swedish climates, weather like above 30. But yeah, so I don't know really. So now when I've been talking about the weather for some time, it is interesting though. Like, well, it depends on what you compare to, but the perception of the old culture and how that differs from, or do not differs from, and how much it differs from other cultures, and if the self-perception is right and so forth. But yeah, it is hot actually. Go back to why I haven't started talking about it. It is hotter than it is usually in Sweden. It's like now in the summer today, I think it's like 24 degrees or something like that. Maybe even more. And tomorrow it's going to be like at most 27, I think, and that's that's not, I mean, usually I think every summer we have a period of a week or something when it's 27 perhaps, but I'm not sure every summer. And it can happen that it's like for 3 weeks above 23, but usually either when it's a 3 week span, at least as far as I can remember, when it's a 3 week span, it would usually drop to 21 or below 20 perhaps some days. And it usually rains also eventually. When it's raining, it's usually not that hot. But topping sort of the maximum temperature during the day. But yeah, weather. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I try to avoid this type of journal thing, but just want to talk about interesting and crucial topics. But we had a sort of what do you call it, bye dinner, or thank you for everything dinner, something like that, or lunch. I mean, for a colleague that I worked closest to, really, very close. He and I, for 1.5 years. So it's been a while, and someone else suggested having a sort of lunch for him, and and it was most appropriate that I organized it. And so, he got a present from all of us, all those who worked closest to him and or knew him best. And and those we and we gave him presents. And I'm not 100% sure, but I almost 100% sure that he gave his father a Japanese whiskey, and I do know that he wanted to be skiing. He likes skiing a lot, and I want to ski in Japan. I'm gonna try to remember if I ever heard him say he likes Japanese whiskey. I just know he brought one to his dad, but I figured he probably will enjoy a Japanese whiskey because I know he do like whiskey. So it's the only thing I've never a complete memory of him saying liking Japanese whiskey, but anyway, he likes whiskey, so I guess he'll really enjoy it. So that was we brought him for a present also. It's quite exclusive one, or yeah, sort of. And so yeah, he appreciated that, and it was his actually after here. I quit last week, and we did this after because we didn't know if did not get that much warning, sort of his the decision of when he was going to quit at our place came quite abruptly, so we did it this week instead. This thank you, bye sort of lunch, and yeah. What more happened today? Yeah, I guess I want to stop working out. It's quite a big decision for me. That I had a friend who suggested sort of doing the marathon last year, and now I have many around me on the job, where I'm at work, that one actually run the marathon a couple of weeks ago. Actually, in this hot, that was actually other period where it was like 28 degrees, and and now we want to run for another year, and he actually got another colleague to do it, so they sort of suggesting that I should, because I'm background in athletics and track and field, but not the like long distance running, but it could be that I could be quite good at it. I don't know for sure, but I have all felt that I have finally allowed myself to focus more on sort of, instead of like high intensity interval training and I actually focus more on sort of building muscle and strength for a while now, and I usually want to keep that going, but and it, to be honest, it's not, if you really want to optimize for it, it's not the best thing you can do to also try to train for a marathon, because it's usually going to cause usually going to burn your calories, and just in general interval. And I was actually read about something quite recently that it's sort of not working, but at the same time, I actually considered some weeks ago, just since I'm training quite intense, like almost every day, like it's actually been six days a week, 1 day running, and like I've always done that, but not always 6 total, but a week. But so I figured if I'm training that much, I don't really have to run, and if I really want to, so I actually consider skipping the running part, just focusing on strength training. But now I'm going back to, well, should I actually jump on this marathon train and do that? Because I don't know if I have a good body for it. I mean, a lot of those things are in genes. Like, it's not a coincidence that Somalians and Eritreans are amazing at that, because they have body for it, and it differs a lot how you're built and so forth. And also, if you have more muscles, it's not going to be a good thing that you have that weight on when you're running for a marathon. But so it's not going to be good for you. But at the same time, if you only just want to do the marathon, to have it done, that's no big deal. I mean, I just said to myself, if I'm if I'm running 10 kilometers every week, but I add 1 kilometer every, I guess it would be a week. I mean, that's not an intense so increase, because that's usually what happens. You sort of you're not used to it and so forth. If I do that, it will take, well, it's 30 added. I will actually be up to, it's just 30 weeks until I'm at a marathon. And 30 weeks what's 30 weeks? Well, that's almost a year, actually. It's not too far from it. I will be at a marathon. But should I run almost a marathon every week? Anyway, it's a quite a good way to sort of ramp it up. And if you're running if you're running sort of 2 to 3, like 20 kilometers, 20, 30 kilometers every week, I mean, maybe that's compatible with strength training. I mean, it's not going to optimize it, but maybe it's compatible. And then you can just perhaps 1 month before it slim down the extra fat. I don't know if this is the optimal thing to do, because that would sort of, or 1.5 months, because that can affect your training and so forth. But in the last week before your rest, being carbohydrates being sort of stuffed into, so you have that energy for the thing. I mean, that would be, it's not it's not optimal if you want to build muscle, but maybe it's running is still something quite good, so I don't think it's going to be, if you're doing it now and then, it's probably okay, perhaps, I don't know. And I don't have to do it like something that's exhausting. I don't, some people don't like running at all, and I'm more like, yeah, why not? Or I actually enjoy it quite a lot sometimes, just going out for a run, but running, but I usually do sort of interval, and seldom just run 10 kilometers. That's sort of standard thing. Many people do, at least. I don't know where the standard is, where people at places where they don't have kilometers as a standard, but we always like 10 kilometers is really a sort of standard, what you just do if you're going to run. You can also do 5 kilometers, of course, and stuff, and that's common too, but and that's like, if you're under an hour, that's fine. But if you're a guy, you probably don't want to push it under 50, and you probably, if you're into it, you really want to go under 40, and perhaps pushing more than that. But I actually forgotten what my sort of personal best is on that, but I think it's, and I don't know, I think I trained for it for a while at a time, but I don't think I went much more under 40. I have actually forgotten, which is quite both embarrassing and some things I don't sort of, it's really sad, because I do want to know what I actually went. I know it was, okay, well, we actually had something at the job when we were running, and I've forgotten that too now actually. But then I was not that as well trained as I hoped for it, and then I think it was 45 or something, 44. I know it's the best I've done is probably at worst 42, but it could be 38 or 37. I don't know actually. But it would be interesting to see if I both those strength training, and I can also push my sort of, because running is not, it is intensity, but I figure like just running, if you're running 10 kilometers, like doing that for a while and pushing that, sort of try to push it a little or a much, I don't know. I wonder how much that, if you do that, say only one time a week, for say 10 or 20 weeks, doesn't matter, compared to not pushing yourself that much, just going for a jog, but doing 20 kilometers every time. I wonder what would have the most impact on your performance on 10 kilometers, like if you then push yourself. Like high intensity training is something that really pushes you, but the volume, if it's the double of the volume in actual running, I wonder if, I think that depends quite much on how much else you're training. If you're doing a lot of other exercises like hard strength training, it's probably going to be well, it depends, because the general, if you're pushing yourself on 10 kilometers, it's perhaps not too big of a difference, the overall load that you need to recover from, as if you're doing 20 kilometers. So perhaps it's like quite similar, but you're going to be running for 2.5 with the time if you're running a little bit slower, and for 2 hours or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about though, how that works, because I've heard when it comes to those, as I've understood, when those who run for very, very long distances, they, if I remember correctly, runs, that's basically the only thing they do. I mean, it's more than awesome, but I don't think they do interval training at all, and they might do something for just muscles and being sort of not being too mundane trainer that sort of breaks your overall sort of functioning. It's too one-sided of training, just running, but they use some small perhaps exercise and so forth. But I don't think they're doing so much interval training and stuff. That's at least what I heard, and I really don't know this because I have some. Yeah. Anyway, but as I remember, they were just running. I think 30 or 40. Some was thinking running 40. No, it can't be true. They're not running a marathon every day. But anyway, they're running. 4 is a number that pops up in my brain, but I could be wrong. But they're running like every day, basically. I think, like, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 days. I don't know if that's what they do, and I don't. Maybe they are doing sort of intervals and stuff. Like, it must do because otherwise it's really, really mundane. They're just running some hours, and then the exact same day after day after day, 5 to 6. I mean, but I've that was what I remember track and field trainers saying that they usually do. So I don't know. And then that would mean that the sort of volume is the important thing. But I don't know. I mean, it's obvious that I don't know. It's interesting. The positive thing, though, if actually doing something like that, adding 1 kilometer every week, would be that, I mean, it is quite good like for your, like, training a lot and doing, it's good for your well-being, and then just especially running is actually extra good for it. So I mean, I'm tempted to do it, but I don't want to affect my strength training, but perhaps you could do both. I mean, you couldn't be, I don't have to be like super duper mega big, and you can still have you can still do a marathon with that, but it's not going to be optimal at all. But yeah, maybe I'll do it, but yeah, I think I should go to sleep actually, but yeah, I'll have to ponder that for a while, but I still don't want to give up on running. So, and I do think that I do so interval training, and if I switch that to running 10 kilometers or something every week, I mean, that's not too bad, I guess. Anyway, yeah, I'll have to ponder that. See ya.